Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of Final Stallions!
All right. And on today's episode of Vinyl Stallions, we have a fantastic guest. We have James Berkeley, UK-based artist, musician, producer, and lover of music. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you very much for having me, man.
And thank you for coming on. We know there's a lot going on in your world right now. Why don't you just catch us up on everything that you got going on recently?
Oh, it's a big question. So yeah, currently my main focus, I would say, over the last 12 months has been the solo stuff. So yeah, I've been doing music for most of my life, and I'd say the amount of time that I've been in the music industry, I started out pursuing a solo electronic project, and then after a few years that kind of ran its course, and then for the last 6-7 years I've been my main creative focus has been my band Yakul. But yeah, then over the last year or so, as I've been just working as a producer as my kind of main income, it's really given me a bit more fuel to want to put some time back into pursuing the solo thing. I love working in a collaborative setting, but there's something that I do really like about just kind of doing it all by myself and just having control over every part of the process. Again, I love to kind of be able to bounce off other people, but yeah, it's a different thing, and I feel like having both sides of that, I think for me definitely is quite important. So it feels like it creatively satisfies all my different needs and desires. So yeah, man, I've been that kind of kicked off in terms of my releases with the project that I did with my bro Ed. His artist name is Ed Blur, and yeah, we started doing a couple sessions for no particular reason. We just kind of connected online. He used to play with this guy Adi Suleiman, who I was a fan of, so I kind of knew from that, and he kind of knew the band. And yeah, we kind of just met up, did a couple sessions, and then it kind of had quite a few tunes that we were pretty into. And yeah, so he wanted to do this series of EPs with artists that he liked. So yeah, we kind of just did a couple more sessions, got a few more tunes together, and did this collaborative project, which was perfect for me because it kind of helped kickstart the solo stuff a little bit for me. And then from there, I've just been, yeah, I've only actually released one full solo single at this point, which was a few months ago, but I'm just about to gear up into releasing a few more leading up to a little project, which should be exciting, man. It's interesting just starting something fresh after doing the band for so long and kind of building it to a point where it still obviously has a very long way to go, but it feels like it sustains itself to a certain point. And starting something fresh is equal parts exciting and giving me just the general apprehension that most artists get from releasing music and putting themselves out there. I feel like that can't be avoided, and yeah, you kind of have to relish that side of it because it's two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. But yeah, man, that's that side of it. And then yeah, I'm doing a lot of producing for artists, and then I also have as you kind of said in the intro about my kind of the online stuff. That's been a thing again over the past year. I've been focusing on that a lot, just trying to build a bit of a presence on there. I'm quite big on the educating side of stuff. I really like kind of talking about concepts that excite me and maybe giving some people some advice and tips on things that maybe they haven't had much experience in. And I'm if I've made certain mistakes, I want to try and help people maybe not make them so much and just have a bit of a cleaner ride. I mean, again, I know a lot of the time you kind of have to tread that path yourself, make those mistakes. But yeah, I like to help try and guide people along that as much as possible. That's something that yeah, I've found myself to be quite passionate about over the last few years, which is interesting. It wasn't an area that I ever thought that I'd be really into, but I guess part of it comes from like with the band, we'll get a pretty like sporadic but decent number of messages and people just saying like how like our music has helped them through like a certain time or like something like that, and it's like such an amazing feeling, and from that it's really made me realize how important that side of it is, and the connection with people and like just yeah, helping people who maybe like are struggling in whatever way. So yeah, man, that's a short little rundown, I guess, of where I'm at currently.
Right.
James, you opened up a can of worms of questions on my end. You've hit on some golden things, but I'll say the number one thing that just again looking at some of your stuff that just stands out to me, simply not even diving into the music, is so your website, jamesberkeley.co.uk. I encourage everyone to go check it out. Just before you even click into the website, you see your name and then it says helping artists live off their music. And I just feel like that is such a great way to put it, because I don't know, a lot of producers, and you're able to obviously, you want them to be able to make their music and you want them to be able to help correct them like you just dove into. But the fact that you are trying to help build this community and people to profit off it in a way where they can sustain their life, just simply eating and living and paying rent and doing something that they love that can impact someone else's life, is just so big. And I just think that statement right there is awesome. I've never heard anyone phrase it in kind of that way, where I want to not only help you make your vision in your mind, but I want to help you succeed and make that part of your day to day. And I just simply thought that was very well put. And again, just stands off the page before you even click on the website.
It's good to hear, man. Thank you. I think one thing that a lot of creatives and like musicians and kind of like creators outside of that as well, I think what a lot of people can struggle with is like feeling guilty for wanting to make money off the thing that they love. And it's like, I think it's important to note that like, sure, the reason why people pursued it, the kind of core reason probably wasn't a financial one, and I think it probably shouldn't be a financial one. But at the same time, of course, like if it's the thing that we love, like of course we want to be able to just do it all the time as much as possible and be able to make a living off of it. And I don't think that's something that people should shy away from. I think that's something that everybody should embrace and like should feel empowered by that.
Yeah.
And I think by just making that leap to feeling okay with that, and maybe to think of yourself in some respects as a business, I think that can have a lot of benefits in terms of the way that you approach certain things. So one thing that I'm like, really into is just like, there's so many opportunities in the current world that we live in, the way that technology is. And even though we're constantly like treading into like this like potentially scary territory, like with the whole AI thing now, and like a lot of people are very worried about stuff, but I like to think of it as just like more of an opportunist and like an optimistic way. Like there's always going to be new things that we can like leverage to help ourselves like do better and kind of like progress in our careers, become more successful. And I think that a lot of the time creatives will kind of like, they'll have that art, they'll have the thing that they put all of their creativity into, but then maybe when it comes to like the marketing side, when it comes to the online side, when it comes to just like how they're actually going to get from having like a music that they've written and kind of like it's like ready to go, how are they going to get from there to actually building the audience? I think maybe people kind of like don't put enough creativity into that side of it as well. And like whether you like it or not, that side is like as important as the actual creating side. So I think it's finding a way of doing it in an authentic way that aligns with you as a like who you are as a person. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. So yeah, definitely really big on just like trying to help people figure out like how they can get from that point to the next point, because it doesn't matter how amazing your music is, if no one knows who you are, you're never going to grow an audience.
Big time, man. No, yeah, you
Yeah.
hit that on the head. And how many hours are you putting into this? Like you said, it's a business, man. If you actually logged your hours, you're like, I think I could make $1 an hour for this.
Yeah, for real, man. I got this app. What's it called? Rescue Time. It's quite a good one. So it kind of just like goes in the background and it literally just kind of like logs the time that you spend on every single app on your computer. And it's real
Okay.
interesting, man. Like it's not something that I ever really look at. Maybe like once every month or something, I'll look back and it's just quite nice to see like, oh wow, I spent like this much time like producing on Logic or whatever it was. Like I spent so and so amount of time. And it can also kind of show you if you've been maybe like wasting time. Um but yeah, man.
Yeah, that leads me to really a bunch of different questions. But I guess I would kind of want to touch on something you mentioned about AI. So one thing I have heard from one of my friends who isn't necessarily a producer, but he does like a little bit of producing work. He's mentioned to me before about how AI can be used when you're mixing a song, like where like you basically just give it a prompt, like, "Hey, I want more low end," or like, "Hey, the high end's too harsh. We want to dampen it." Have you like had any experience with like any of those technologies? And like, I guess like, could you comment on like maybe how they might be useful or utilized moving forward, or like some of the
100%.
limitations of them too?
Yeah. 100%, man. I actually haven't seen that one in particular. That sounds nuts. Like I could definitely see that's the way that it will go. So the one thing that I have used is Adobe. You've got this like podcast software where basically it's crazy when you listen to like the like on the website. It's got like a little demo and it basically it's just got a sliding like button, and on one side it's just a guy being like, I'm talking in a room, it's like really echoey and like blah blah blah, and then you like slide the knob and it's just like this, it just sounds like it's on like a really good mic and it's like in a like really well treated space, and it's basically just a software that kind of just like does whatever algorithm, I don't know, and it just kind of like gets rid of all of the kind of like background sound and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It does do it a little bit. I feel like it does it a bit too much, and there's not really like you can't really do like there's not like a mix knob on it or anything. It just kind of does it, and it's like kind of soulless. It kind of takes a lot out of it. But I can definitely see there being some really good utilizations. Like maybe like mastering will become, I don't know. It's really hard to know, but I could see that like mastering became, or at least the kind of like the lower side of things, that people will stop using mastering engineers and kind of like use AI mastering. It's really hard to say. I think there's definitely a few specifics, like specific jobs where I feel like yeah maybe it might kind of like to a certain degree kind of like take that market. So I don't know, like the sync world, like advert music for adverts, stuff like that. Potentially when it gets to a point where AI can kind of like write music, I can see that maybe getting kind of taken, or at least kind of like using AI to get like really good referencing to then send to somebody else. The thing to me that isn't like super worrying is that like I feel like however far it goes, you always need a human at the beginning of the process and at the end of the process. So without the human to know what they're trying to get, and without the human to judge whether it has done it correctly, there's not really, yeah, that those two parts of the process are like totally vital. Like a human will always be bookending either side of it. And yeah, I think people may have to be ready to kind of like do little lane shifts, and like I feel like this is a good example of why having a varied skill set I think is quite important. Like if you just do like one really specific thing, unless it's like incredibly kind of detailed to the point where it's not maybe going to be something that is going to the AI will be able to kind of like do in quite the same way. Yeah, maybe there's like a couple other things that you might have to do as well, but I think ultimately if you're utilizing it instead of maybe kind of just like shunning it away and thinking of it as this negative thing. I think those are the people that are going to do the best, like people that are embracing it as much as possible. And I mean, we can all still be kind of like potentially apprehensive about where it goes, but I think technology is not really something that you can just like regress in terms of like a global thing. Like it's gonna keep progressing. Like there probably were loads of people when the internet came around that were like, we're not gonna do the internet. How many people are not doing the internet now? Like it's not something that you can fight again when progress kind of like moves like that. And similarly to the internet, obviously that took quite a lot of jobs. It created a whole bunch more though. So I don't know. I feel like you can't really know what the changes are going to be until they've kind of like happened and you can retrospectively do it. But like, yeah, I'm thinking like reasonably positive about it. And then the other side is when it comes like people actually making music, like artists, I mean, like artists and bands. I don't think that's ever gonna like AI is really gonna affect that too much. I'm pretty sure that there'll probably be like AI artists at some point. I think that that'll probably be a thing, but people are always going to want to connect to the deeper story. And if you have an AI created music, however good it is, anytime anybody wants to delve a little bit deeper into what's behind that, there's nothing behind it. So there's always going to be like somebody that's a super fan of an artist. They want that background. They want the story. They want to know the journey, the process, what led them, the meaning behind the music, like what's kind of like inspires them and all of those things. And when it's just the computer behind that, however much somebody like likes the music, I feel like you can't have a connection past a certain point. But that's my general views on AI currently. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't really disagree with anything you said there. Like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, if you're doing it right, it will be a tool. But like you said, there's always going to be a human on the front and the back end. And anyone, yeah, looking for like that deeper meaning, that deeper story is always going to seek that human element in the creation process.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
like
no,
I'm quite big on sorry just one quick thing as well, like I'm quite big on the whole you know the Thousand True Fans book. I think it's a book. It's basically for anybody that doesn't know, it's like if you have 1,000 fans that will pay you $100 a year, then you're doing pretty well. So the aim of it is just to like, yeah, try and find your niche. Try and find that just like group of people that resonates with what you do. And I think what's great about just thinking of it as like 1,000 true fans is like that feels like a really manageable thing. And like obviously to have 1,000 people that are willing to pay that, there's obviously going to be a bunch of other people that know about you too. It's not like you're going to be able to just find 1,000 people and then like no one else knows you, and like it's going to kind of permeate beyond that. But it feels like a manageable thing. Like you don't have to be like a global artist. You can just be an artist that just has their niche and has their fan base, and that can be enough. And I think that's an empowering thing to think about.
When you
yeah, absolutely.
all I was going to ask is, so when you are like, I guess, educating artists on how to monetize their music or their skills, is that one of the concepts that you kind of coach on? You know, like you don't necessarily have to have like the broadest net, but you need to have like enough of a net. And if you really appeal to that net, then you can make an income with, you know, like you said, 1,000 people.
Yeah, for sure. So the like I love the concept of compounding, and that if you just keep on doing something and you keep on doing it well and you keep on doing it consistently, that eventually you're going to succeed in whatever that venture is. So the place that I always try and start out with it is like, okay, so somebody wants to be like a successful artist and have a career in music. So to me, the most important thing, like the one thing that will guarantee that they don't succeed is if they stop. So before anything else, they need to be able to continue in whatever workload it is, whatever kind of like the amount of time they put in their flow, that needs to be a sustainable thing over a really long period of time. That's kind of like the most important thing. So they need to be able to feel positively about that path. So the easiest way to me to like find that is to be authentic. Like the moment you have like an incongruency between who you are as a person and who you are as an artist, I think you're going to start feeling negatively about it. You just need to align that, and it makes it a lot easier when it comes to just like following a plan in terms of like, I don't know, maybe like your branding as an artist. It's like, instead of trying to create something, just be yourself, and then it kind of like, you don't have to really like think as hard. It's like, oh, what would I do in this situation, and then do it instead of like having to like contrive something. So the other thing with being authentic like that is then there's always going to be people that will resonate with that. Maybe not like millions of people, but yeah, thousands of people, hundreds of people to start off with, and then you can kind of like grow from there. I think that's like the best place to start. And that's one of the amazing things with the internet, is that we're now able to create these little like spaces for that many, like 1,000 people that just like your music. And that's not a thing that you'd have got like 20, 25, 30 years ago. I think that's why we're seeing like just way more artists, way more subgenres, just because so many more people are making music and they're just like carving out their little space. And I think it's great and it's exciting. So yeah, that's definitely the place that I'll try and start with people. It's like being authentic and building up a really positive relationship with their artistry and like that pursuit, because the moment you start kind of like hating on the thing you're doing or feeling negative about it or just like getting down about it, it's a lot harder to keep it up. Like I there was like a year period where I like basically didn't do any writing for myself, and I did like no social media. And it was because like over that kind of like the 20, like, so in the UK we had a lockdown from like December 2020 till like April 2021 or something. It was like a 4-month period. It was like pretty much kind of like really solid, and a lot of people were posting a lot on social media, and I was like really jumping on it and like trying to do as much as possible, doing a lot of videos, doing a lot of like performance videos, a lot of kind of like tutorial type stuff. And it really kind of like messed with my head over those months, because like sometimes they'd do well and then sometimes they wouldn't. And like, because I wasn't getting any kind of like validation elsewhere, because it was like everyone was just stuck at home, I started really like feeding off the engagement that I was getting. And then if it didn't do well, it would like proper get me, especially if like a few in a row didn't do well. I'd just be like, what even am I, like, what am I, like, and it would like really mess with me, to the point where even though it kind of started gaining some traction, I was already too far gone, and I just had to take like a year out without posting. And then when I did start posting again, I was like, man, if I'd continued over that year, like I could have built so much more. And it kind of just made me realize that the thing that like potentially cost me a bunch of growth and a bunch of new fans was the negative association that I built up with it, and that it was affecting my mental health to the point where I couldn't justify continuing it. And it kind of led me to the point where like it's like your mental health and your association with the thing you're doing, it's kind of like ground zero. That needs to be the foundation that everything else gets built upon if you want to have any longevity as a career. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Another thought that just popped into my head when you were talking about that. Is there ever, so like when you're coaching an artist on like how to grow themselves, is there like sort of a point that you see? Because obviously, you know, an artist starting off isn't going to be generating enough money to, support themselves. So they probably have another job, 9 to 5, whatever. Is there like a point that you look where you tell the artists, like, all right, your income and your growth looks good to where you can quit that job and go all in? Like, is there a certain point where like that becomes clear, or like how do you gauge that, I guess?
Totally, man. That's a really good question. It's super hard because like whenever you take that step, you you can never know. It's like it's a gamble, really. It's like you take that leap of faith and you're like, I hope that this was the right time to do this. But I think what's important is that like even if it wasn't the right time, like you can kind of like always regress back to like having another job if you need to. But I think it's important to remember that like even the pursuits that you don't want to do, like a 9 to 5, can fall through. So I think it always makes sense to bet on yourself. Just an example, I recently turned down it would have been like quite a consistent and stable like couple day a week teaching gig that I got offered, and it was something that I'd like been wanting to do for a period of time. But I've recently got rid of my studio space, and I'm just in the second bedroom of my flat now, and I wanted the stability when I had the studio because it was like the rent of it was just like crippling, and I was like, it was just really like a regular stress. But then losing that outgoing and then getting offered this work, I was like, I need to bet on myself with this, because I could pursue this, but then it would probably take up more time than I want to give to it. And ultimately that wasn't a pursuit, that the direction that was going to take me wasn't going to align with the direction that I want to go. And even if it gave me security, it was going to take up too much of my mental bandwidth to be able to kind of like put into the things that I do want to put into. So even though it would have given me a bit of stability, I made the decision to bet on myself and continue with what I'm already doing. And just like I may turn around in a couple of months and be like, oh, that would have actually been like really helpful. And now I feel like yeah, like I haven't got as much work as I thought I was going to get right now, blah blah blah. And if that's the case, then I would have kind of like maybe I could have learned from that. But I think if you are in a position where you can see like so you can see yourself being able to make it work, I think it's always better to take that leap and try, because it's really hard to fully commit to plan A when you're kind of like putting too much of your focus into plan B, you know. I can't think of who had that phrase of just like don't have a plan B, but I do think that spreading yourself thin, you're kind of like setting yourself up to fail by being like, oh, I'm going to put this time into this, just in case. Because like if you weren't putting that time and focus into that, maybe that would be the difference that would actually get you over the line with the thing that is your plan A. So when it comes to like there being a point, I don't think there's like a blueprint that you can necessarily kind of like put to everybody. I mean, what I would say is like, if you're working like a 40-hour job, 9 to 5, then it's probably like, yeah, the time and kind of energy that you have to put into music is probably going to be quite like limited. Like I'm sure at the weekend you'll probably be super tired and you kind of just want to like chill and not like put too much focus into that. So I don't know, maybe what I would say to somebody in that position would be like, would you be able to maybe go down to like 3 days a week or something? Is there a way that or even just 4 days a week, just have that one day where you can kind of like, it's not the weekend, you're not resting, and you can just throw that time into to try and like build your project a bit more. And maybe there's like, this is why a lot of people in music do like stuff like functions or private teaching or like whatever it is. Like I think you could maybe switch so to doing something which is like within music. It's not going to be like maybe your like main focus, like the thing you really want to do, like something like doing functions, but it allows you a lot more time. So like I know, like I used to do this loads. I just kind of like I do like gigs on like Friday, Saturday, and it wouldn't get me loads of money. It would get me enough money, and then the rest of the week I just kind of like have my own time and I can just like put it into wherever I wanted. So I know that there's always options of stuff like that. But one thing I've really learned is that whatever lane shift you do for your just to kind of like cover your costs, cover bills, cover your rent, everything, it should never take too much time to kind of like set up or take too much time out of your week, because yeah, then you just won't have anything left. Like I've done a thing quite a lot over the past year where I just like I get an idea and I start putting time into it, and then I'm like, wait a minute. To get this at a point where it's actually making me money, I might as well just put that time into my solo music and building my online brand, because those are the things I want to do. So you can overcomplicate it by trying to like do too many things. And yeah, try and keep it as simple as possible is where I now sit. I've come around to this realization. Make it as simple as possible. Do something which you can put the smallest amount of time into that gets you enough money, and also just doesn't make you super miserable, and give yourself as much headspace as possible to put into like growth and artistry. And also make sure that sometime parts of the week you just have just to like be a human, and like you don't have to do anything. You can just like go for a walk and like just sit and not have to do something, because like I feel like those are the points for me that I get ideas, and it's that those kind of spaces in between stuff that I think is super vital that people don't prioritize enough, really.
No, that's very well said. Yeah, no, those passing by moments, you're doing it, but like you said, you're not thinking about it, and you're just singing a voice memo into your phone, and for the 10 seconds, and that'll end up being a single down the road or something.
100%, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah, that was very well put, man. Like I always say this, I'm learning so much right now, so I appreciate you diving into all this. But I want you to take us back, James. So, where did this all start? Where did your love for music, instruments, how did it transfer into production, mixing, and then you mentioned your band. Just I don't know, take us on a journey and tell us where this all started for you.
For sure, man. So I'm one of those people that, but like kind of never, yeah, like always knew that I wanted to do music for no particular reason. It was just something that I really gravitated towards. Once like we kind of just had like one of those old keyboards, just like old rubbish Casio keyboards at home, and I just used to like play around with. And yeah, just can't really put my finger on it. I just had like I just kind of gravitated towards it. And yeah, so piano was the first instrument that I played. So I was playing that when I was like 5, probably. I remember the first performance that I ever did was at the village hall where we lived, and I played the song from Titanic.
Oh, my
I
heart will
think I
go
was like
on.
my whole go on. Yeah, exactly.
Proudly.
And yeah, I think I was like I think I was 6 maybe. I probably wasn't very good, but yeah. And then I played piano and like I also played flute at school, and I kind of like did a bit of singing, not too much. I kind of like yeah, played kind of like the whole way through until I was like kind of 12, 13. And then I actually stopped playing piano for like 10 years because I was doing grades, and it kind of just like yeah, I've got a bit of a yeah. On the whole, I'm kind of against grades for a lot of reasons, but for me, it was like I wasn't listening to that music, and it was the music that I was playing, and so I guess like there was a point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. So yeah, I started playing guitar. Never really kind of like had lessons with guitar. Um, so yeah, the first kind of music that I wrote was just like really, really bad acoustic singer-songwriter type stuff when I was kind of like 14. And I actually recorded I recorded an EP with this guy. He had a studio just down the road from where we lived. And yes, I kind of like did this EP. And years later, I found out it's this guy called Jake Gosling. I found out like years later that while like at the same time that I recorded this EP with him, he was like working with Ed Sheeran and like One
wow.
Direction, and like he got co-wrote Lego House, and like he's just like he's like an incredibly successful producer and songwriter, and like I just had no idea. And I occasionally I visualized this whole different like life path where I was just like took a bit more interest when I was working with him and was just like, oh, what can I like come and assist you on stuff, and then like ended up getting co-writes and all this stuff, and like this whole other path.
That's wild.
Yeah, but like obviously at that point in my life, I like that wasn't something like I didn't have the interest of like what he was kind of doing, so I never kind of asked. And but yeah, it's it's an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, so then I was in bands for a bit. Like the music that I was into when I was a teenager was kind of like just the classic kind of noughties guitar music, kind of like emo pop punk sort of space. So yeah, I like sung in some bands doing that, and then I like screamed in like a post-hardcore band. I had like a terrible screaming technique. And then I was also kind of getting into electronic music. This would have been when I was kind of like 18, 19. And I was doing a bit of production, just like on like Cubase. And then the thing that really kind of like turned it, I was I was into electronic music. I was like making like really like just bad stuff. I was on Logic at this point, like when I was like maybe 20. And then there was this one night where one of my really good friends, who I kind of like didn't really know at the time, just kind of like came back to our flat. We kind of like saw him in town, came back, and we stayed up all night making a tune. And he just had this like incredible energy and like really creative guy, really amazing producer. And I'm like, he just kind of like lighted this spark in me to just like really just push production. And he kind of showed me how to do a bunch of stuff that just I had no idea how to do. He basically just kind of like got me out of like a plateau, and kind of from that night onwards, I like just produced every day. It was really bizarre. Like up until that point, I was kind of like, it was like I was kind of waiting to, I had always had this like drive to kind of like make stuff and kind of just like write and stuff. But that one night kind of just gave me this random focus that just kind of like perpetuated and just kind of inspired me and like pushed me forwards. So then I like from that I kind of started this solo electronic project. I was really into kind of like early James Blake and kind of like R&S records and like Bonobo and a lot of like Warp and Brain Feeder and stuff like that.
Okay.
And yeah, my abilities, like my at this point I still hadn't got back into playing piano. I just kind of would just sit at the keyboard and just like play shapes and stuff. So yeah, I did that project for a while. My voice and my understanding of harmony and rhythm and my level of production were all kind of like not quite there yet. So even though the project did okay, I guess it kind of like just hit a natural endpoint because of the like certain things that I lacked. And then I took a little bit of time out. Like that was when I got back into piano and ended up getting really into jazz, kind of like in a back-ended way. So like I got into jazz because that was the way I wanted to just get chords for writing. And I kind of like had the realization that like jazz harmony was going to really help me there. And then through that process, I ended up kind of getting really into it and kind of like all of the surrounding genres that kind of like come with that. Yeah. Which is funny because it never kind of like, that wasn't the initial aim, but it kind of took me down this journey. And then it was when I got like really obsessed with Voodoo, the D'Angelo album, which like was quite late compared to like when most people got obsessed with that album. I feel like a lot of people in that space at some point would have got obsessed with that album. And I did this thing where I was like, I'd listen to an album and I'd kind of read up loads about it while I was listening to it and try and like get like all this background. I remember reading this thing on like Questlove talking about how like loads of that album just came out of them just like in Electric Lady Studios, just kind of like jamming stuff out. And that just felt like really exciting to me at the time, because I was used to just like being in a room on my own, just producing stuff. And the thought of just creating organically with other musicians was like super exciting. So I ended up forming the band from that. And yeah, we were just kind of like jamming in the basement for a while. Still wasn't quite there in terms of like my ability, but luckily it was confined to a basement. No one had to hear it quite yet. And yeah, like from that really helped me a bunch. There was like a couple year period where like I made a very large amount of progress with my understanding of everything. It was partly because of the band, partly just all the time I put in, and partly because I was going to these weekly jazz jams, and it was like my trial by fire. Every week I'd go there and I'd do a different standard, and man, I just got roasted so hard for ages, and it was like really like just really painful. But I think like I'd set a parameter, which was that I was going to go every week. And because I had that as a parameter, instead of allowing myself to just like stop and fail, because I had that as a non-negotiable, the only solution was to just like become better really fast so that I didn't just get absolutely rinsed every time I went. So I'd like leave and I'd be like, I cannot feel that embarrassed again, like on that stage. I just can't let it happen. So then between then and the following week, I would just put in so much time. So like I was saying earlier, this was when the only work I was doing was functions. So Friday, Saturday, I would go. It was like I was doing like a rock and pop like weddings band, just like, and I was just singing in it. And it was it was not the one, but it definitely helped my voice a lot, and it helped me become more used to playing in front of people, and it gave me the whole week just to kind of like practice and just work on stuff. And that's something that I would not have been able to do if I'd been like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna get a normal job and do this on the side. Like I've never had a normal 9 to 5. I've been like very adamant that I don't want something that like gets that much in the way. So yeah, this couple year period, I put a lot of time into playing piano, and I was like doing quite a lot of production at the time as well. But the main focus was the band over that period of time, and then we started releasing and kind of like grew pretty organically over the years. It was interesting. Like occasionally people would be like, "Oh, like yeah, how have you kind of like got to that point?" Not yeah, like, obviously I feel like we have like so many more like rungs to go up, but like people would be like, how have you got to that point? I'd be like, I don't actually know really. It just kind of happened. Like we released music and we did shows and people liked it, which was cool. So yeah, that gave me a lot of confidence with my ability, and I was kind of like putting a lot of time in, producing a lot. And then over the last few years, I've basically just done a combination of the band, producing for other artists, doing private teaching, and functions up until like COVID. I've kind of like, I don't do any performing apart from like my own stuff now. That was like a rule I kind of set myself. I was like, I only want to play to people that want to see me play and have paid to see me play, rather than like that are just there and I just happen to be playing in the room and they're like, who's that guy? Like I got so sick of just like doing like just a show in a pub in town, and like everybody's just trying to have a conversation and you're just like encroaching on their life. I'm like, this isn't good for anybody, and it just makes me feel bad about myself. So
oh man, dude, that's a funny concept, honestly, of just someone playing in the corner. But hey, I found great music that way. So open your mind, people, when you are trying to have those conversations.
100%. And like I know I've literally just said about how like doing functions is a really good way of giving yourself time. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying stop doing it when you start hating it.
Fair enough.
Because I think you can like, I don't know. I know people that have just kind of they've just got into that place and they maybe just like stop pursuing the focus that they maybe had 10 years ago, and they just get stuck in the loop of just doing functions forever, which maybe some people they'll love that. But if that's not what you want to do, make sure that you don't fall into that trap. but yeah, so now my focus is just kind of like building my own music, building the band still, and yeah, just trying to like help other musicians, whether it's kind of like on the production side or whether it's on the kind of like artist development side. Yeah, that was, I mean, there's obviously a lot more detail than that, but that was a little quick rundown.
Yeah, hell yeah, I appreciate it. And real quick, tell everyone where they can follow your band, your music, and whole shebang.
For sure. So you can follow me on like my tags the kind of same on most things. James Berkeley Music, Berkeley, whichever one. It is Berkeley, but like I honestly I'm so used to it being Berkeley that it doesn't even compute in my brain. But yeah, it's it's spelled Berkeley. James Berkeley Music is my handle. And then my band is Yakul, that is Yakul. Anybody that's into Studio Ghibli or Studio Ghibli, whichever one it is, it's from Princess Mononoke. We're really into
Oh, I
Japanese
love
imagery.
those. Oh, dude, those are unbelievable.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So and all the music, like, yeah, there's like a certain like there's like a harmony and like, there's a certain movements in Japanese music that I just absolutely love, and like yeah, all of their art style and imagery, like yeah, massively influenced by that. But yeah, man. Yeah, you can find me on all the normal places.
What you just said about the Japanese art and imagery, is that like sort of what went into that album artwork for the EP you just released with Yakul Outlines?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we've tried over the last like couple releases, especially to really get that in, get the kanji of the band name on it, and just like yeah, it's something that like I was saying earlier about just like being authentic. We've kind of like jumped around with a few different art styles, and then we were like, wait a minute, like what are we like what is like the core of like the like our interest when it comes to kind of like art styles, and like tried to stay true to that as much as possible and kind of like be authentic to what we like. But yeah, man.
Right on. And I guess like sort of piggybacking off of something you said earlier about like not wanting to just get, stuck in the loop of bar gigs, or I guess, yeah, in the UK, you don't really call it bars, it's pubs, right?
Yeah.
So getting stuck in the loop of pub gigs, how do you sort of balance that? Because I'm sure, with Yakul, some of your bandmates like are wanting to get after it, play a bunch of shows. Like, how do you, I guess, sort of balance volume with being like very more, like targeted and selective with the shows?
So that was actually one thing we did with the band from like quite an early point, which I do think worked in our favor. We started being quite selective, like probably earlier than most bands would. So I remember we did a couple shows, and there was someone we just felt like the level of the general level of the bands was like not that high, and we just had this realization. We were like, I think we need to like distance ourselves from those kind of shows, just because like it's kind of like the fake it till you make it thing. We were like, we don't want to be lumped in with these other bands, so we're literally just gonna not do shows with people that we feel like just need to like put a bit more time into it to get the level up and stuff. So yeah, we just started being really selective, turning down anything that just didn't feel like it aligned with that, and I feel like it works quite well, because it's a lot of it is a perception thing. We weren't necessarily better, but like if people thought that we were like they're like yeah like turning things down or not doing certain things, we kind of put ourselves into like a different bracket maybe, which yeah I think is an important thing. But you do make a good point that yeah, like volume can be really good to start off with, so I'm not necessarily saying that that's the way to do it. It worked quite well for us, but obviously like the more shows you play, the more people are gonna hear you. I mean like the current like environment of being an artist or band, I mean, it's obviously a lot more online. So like doing a lot of shows, it maybe isn't quite the same, and especially in the UK compared to America, because I know like you could literally just be on the road constantly and just like travel around, and I feel like loads of bands in America will just do that, just go city, state to state, and just like keep playing shows. But like you can't really do that in the UK because it's just not big enough. Like you could do like a couple weeks and then you've kind of gone around most places. And you're like, all right. So I think, yeah, we've tried to not oversaturate ourselves in any market, because like I feel like you don't want to be too readily available as an artist when it comes to performing, because people aren't going to want to come and see you like every month, I would assume, probably. But like we'll try and play like at least like, yeah, Brighton, our hometown, we'll do like one show a year, and it means that it kind of like is a bit more, it's a bit more of a thing. We can put a bit more time and effort into it, and just like, yeah, people are more likely to want to come to that because we're just like, it's the only time they'll be able to see us. I think that's an important thing. It's like if you're too available, then it ceases to become as exciting. So yeah, I think that's something to bear in mind when it comes to doing shows. And yeah, maybe doing like always doing like smaller rooms than you think you can do is always like a really that's kind of been an important one for like a really, really long time. Because yeah, you want as much as possible to kind of like sell out the shows you do, so then there's probably more people that didn't get tickets, and then it just like drums up more interest, and then the next time you do it, they're like, oh, but that one sold out, so I want to make sure that I get tickets early this time. Yeah, that's a useful one for sure.
Right on. Yeah, that is like such an interesting way to approach it. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally, man. I don't know where it necessarily came from. But yeah, we just felt like by creating that separation, hopefully people would kind of like think of us in a different light. And yeah, it felt like it's paid off so far.
Right on. And didn't you guys play a show at Ronnie Scott's not too long ago?
Yeah, man. So that was the second one we've done, like the headline, like the kind of main show slot, which has like been amazing. We've done a couple before then. So we did one with Bluey's other band, Citrus Sun, like a while back. We did one with Erica Badu's band, Somewhere in the Grits.
Yeah. She's going on a
RC in the Grits
tour through the US this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love her music. Yeah, honestly, I feel like not a lot of people over here really know a ton of her stuff, but yeah, like sort of in that rap, hip hop, R&B, even like soul and funk, like her music hits a ton of genres. She is just like really, really good.
100%, man. Like, yeah, she like whenever like I can't think of what festival I saw her at, but yeah, people in that space in the UK, she's like up there with like, yeah, the very best. But yeah, playing Ronnie's with her band was amazing. It was also terrifying because they were like so good. It was just and we came in with a sound check, and it was just like, oh man, I don't think they stuck around to watch us, luckily, like because that would have been really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did a couple kind of like of the opening for other people. We kind of like hosted the late jam, which it's kind of like midnight till 2:30 a.m. or something. That was really fun. But yeah, so we've done 2 shows kind of just like headlining the main slot. We did one at the start of 2022, and then we did one like a couple months ago, and they've both been so amazing. It's like, it's interesting because Ronnie's is such a different type of show to like any other show, really. Like everyone's sitting down, some people are like eating their dinner, and we're quite loud as a band. Like I mean, it's a jazz bar traditionally, so a lot of the people who play there will kind of be like straight ahead jazz musicians, and we come in and it's like the start of our set, it's like just, it's really, really loud, and there's always like an old couple at the front. I'm just like, oh, I'm really sorry, like I don't think you're enjoying this at all, but this is how we sound. Sorry. But what's really cool is is how like attentive everyone is there. Like the first couple of times we played, it was a little bit disconcerting because we're like, oh, it's like really quiet. Like no one's kind of like making any noise or anything. But then we kind of realized that people are just like listening really, really intently. And when we had that realization, every show that we've like the last 2 times that we played, we've had these moments where it comes all the way down and I just go to the grand piano and our 2 amazing BVs, Scarlett Faye and Sylvia Menze, we'll kind of just do like a couple of tunes, just like piano and vocals. And that's honestly like some of my like favorite moments performing like in my entire life doing those, just because like there's not many occasions where, well, firstly you can just be playing on a piano that just like so many incredible people have played at, but in this like just in this room that has just housed some of the best musicians in the world over the past like 60-70 years, but just to have a full room of people that are just 100% silent, just like fully paying attention to you. No one's talking. Like if you try and do those drop down bits at like a normal gig, the chance of having it totally silent are like very small. So it was like, honestly, every time I've done that, it's an incredible moment. And like, yeah, I've really relished that because it's a special place. So yeah, I feel very grateful to have been able to do a couple shows there.
Yeah, and that's why I asked about that venue specifically. Like, obviously, being in the U.S., there's not a ton of venues in the U.K. that like we know about, but that's one that we do just because, yeah, like you said, all these legendary artists have played there, very popular, like in the jazz space.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, that was amazing.
It's a community all around, and I mean, Klepp and I obviously doing Vinyl Stallions. We've had Tony Momorella on from Incognito. We've had Derek McKenzie from Jamiroquai, and like it truly is a community over there, and it's great to see everyone interconnected and intertwined with each other, and really, again, just finding ways to build each other up and build up that whole scene. And yeah, man, it's a really cool thing, and just for us to be somewhat a part of it and kind of hear stories from all the different guests that we've had on from the UK has been really, really rewarding, and just again cool to see that fruition, and definitely is not stopping either.
Absolutely,
but,
man.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. But I mean, I think we talked about it before we started recording. But so how the Vinyl Stallions found out about James was your collab with Incognito. How does I guess dive in a little bit to this community. Like, how does someone like yourself find yourself just, I don't know, hanging with all these really incredible artists that have been doing it for so many years?
For sure, man. Yeah. So with Bluey, that came about. There was an artist that I was writing and kind of like MDing for, who was working with it was at Bluey's studio. It was like going to go out through his label, and there was a couple sessions that he kind of came along to, and initially I was like not taking the kind of like producer role on it, but I started like, it felt like it was kind of lacking a bit of that direction, so I kind of like started taking a bit more control over that. And just I think Bluey had kind of like observed a couple sessions where I was doing that, and then he got me involved on a couple. There was like someone else that he was working with, he got me in a session just to kind of like add some stuff and just kind of like direct it. And then he wanted me to get involved on the last record, which is amazing. So there was like 3 tracks that we worked on. There was 2 that he had this idea of having these like little interludes that were kind of like 2 minutes less. And he kind of wanted me to just kind of roll with, like, he had some lyrics, but he just wanted me to kind of like produce them and just roll in whatever direction I wanted to. And then there was another one that he just wanted me to vocal that was like already done, which was amazing. It was really, really cool. And I think like I think Bluey's actually like quite a big reason why I like have the motivation to just like try and give back in terms of like information and help, because like that's his whole thing, and like it's amazing to witness, and I'm like very grateful for all of the help that he's given me. So like from that, I got to go to Japan with them when they did a tour, which was like, yeah, it was amazing. It was like just before COVID, so we like managed to get in like some like really good traveling before being stuck in the UK for a while. But yeah, so the Japan stuff was amazing. He was partly doing it because he was a fan of the band as well, and he was like really trying to help us, which again was just like, yeah, so amazing of him to do. And yeah, then we we kind of like did a bunch of shows there in Blue Note Tokyo for like 5 nights, which is like so amazing. And then I did a couple more shows with them. We went to the Blue Note in Milan at the start of the kind of like end of January 2020. So like we kind of followed all the places that COVID first went. We went to Japan, we went to Italy, and then back to the UK. But yeah, that was like amazing. There was like some more touring that I was potentially going to do with them, but then obviously it all kind of got cancelled. But then more recently, I've been doing some more stuff with like for the next Incognito record, which has been really cool. Yeah, he's done this thing a couple of times where like I remember when we were in Milan in the dressing room, I just had this like little mini Yamaha keyboard I was just messing around with, and he just kind of plugged in a MIDI cable and just had Logic, and he was just like, no, keep playing, and he just like recorded a bunch of stuff. And then like next thing I knew, he was like, oh yeah, this is a good tune, and it had like Henrik from Dirty Loops playing bass in it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, like it was
That's
just a
awesome.
random. It was so cool. I just like randomly just messed around and some chords that he just kind of like turned into this thing. But yeah, so more recently, like a few months ago, he'd like messaged me in the morning. He was like, oh, we're in Thailand right now. There's like a studio in Thailand that they record at a lot. He was like, do you reckon you could send some key stuff over? And I was like, oh shit, I remember what he did last time when I asked him this. So I'm gonna like really kind of like get on this like straight away. So like an hour later, I sent him like 5 or 6 different ideas. And he'd like, yeah, 2 of those got turned into tracks for the next record. And then there was a third one that, yes, they were really dope. And it was so cool, just kind of like, because I'd forgotten what they sounded like by the time like I'd kind of like heard the tracks. I was like, oh wow, that's like so cool that just this like random thing that I just messed around on just kind of just turned into this full track. And then there was a third track that again he kind of wanted me to start from scratch, which was like really cool to do. So I haven't actually heard any of the finished tracks yet, but like I feel like that it sometime this year the album is meant to come out. I actually have no idea any details, but like yeah, it was really cool to be asked to be part of it again. Like I'm always like incredibly grateful of Bluey, and like yeah, all the time
yeah.
that he's given me.
That's crazy. We're praying it comes out this year. I think when we talked to Tony, he said maybe Blue is in like the post-production kind of stage of it all. So we're hoping on our end as well. But no, I had the pleasure of seeing them up in Detroit, Michigan with Klepp earlier this year. And it was my first time, man. And I've just been engulfed in that music for the last year. But to be able to see it live, and then like you just said, Bluey's MO is helping the younger generation have a platform, be able to sustain what music is. And I mean, I just felt it up there, man. And like, I think the venue was like, you guys got to shut down. And I think there was like 2 more songs left. And Bluey just like went straight for like the last encore song and bringing people up on stage. Klepp and I just like ran right down to the bottom. It was like an unbelievable experience in this amphitheater.
Wow.
And
That's so cool, man. Yeah, his energy on shows is like amazing. He just always has like he just has like a little wise speech that he'll give like at some point throughout it, and it's like, yeah, man, like yeah, he's amazing. It's just yeah, his approach and his just like the way that he sees life and just like other people is like incredible. I'm glad you guys got to see the show. That's amazing.
yeah, dude, it was a freaking magnet, and Klepp had the pleasure of seeing them back-to-back nights.
Yeah. The day after they were in Cincinnati, Ohio. And actually at that show, he did say the album would be coming out at the end of the summer. So I feel like it should be coming out soon, but I know they've been kind of playing all over the place. So I don't know how much time he's really, had to dive in and go through mixes and whatnot.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. He's always got like so many projects on the go at once, and like
Yeah, and now I think he's like Citrus Sun. I'm pretty sure is on a tour right now. So yeah, again, like I who knows? But there is like a couple-month gap coming up, I think, and in between
Mm,
dates. So that I mean, maybe that's when it comes out, or at least is announced.
yeah, hopefully, man. Like, yeah, his work ethic and like just the what his workload that he has is like that's crazy. But I mean, yeah, he obviously has like just going back to what I was saying at the beginning about like having a positive relationship with your artistry. That is how you have a career for plus 40 years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, and sorry, Club, but it's something that just James pointed out that we've had another guest talk on it before, but the essence of just being like a studio or like being a feature on a track where like you just said you don't know what it sounds like now. And like I just think that's like a hilarious concept where you're like, I put my 2 cents in and you take what you want with it.
Yeah, man. It's really, especially as like someone like me who is used to kind of like producing the stuff that I work on. I'm used to kind of having input on like every part of the process, and there's something really cool about just like just kind of setting it up, and you're like, it's gonna sound like I know it's gonna sound great, but it's just like I wonder, yeah, like what direction that's gonna take in. All of these little micro decisions that like I'm not even gonna know about, and then I just get to hear like the finished thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah, no, you're like sending it and laying back saying, this is all for you now.
and that reminds me of something. So yeah, like another guy we had on, Derek McKenzie. He drums in Jamiroquai. He gets used for studio sessions all the time. And one thing he was telling us was like, so he'll like do the work, give him the track, but then he said that he always wants to like hear the finished product, and then he'll like give him another track after the finished product, because then he's like, well, what I would have played would have been different had I known like what it's going to sound like in the end. I just like found that super interesting because yeah, there's like two ways to like go about it. Yeah, you just give it to him and then whatever happens happens, whereas like he like more like really wanted to be involved and like see it all the way through to the end.
That's really interesting, man. Yeah, like I completely get that because it's like all of these decisions have taken it in a direction where like with that new information, your approach would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, I guess there's no kind of like there's no right or wrong within any of that. It's just like different people's
Totally.
approaches. Like one thing that
Yep.
I've found loads recently is that like I've just been okay with using like the original demo vocal that I put down on something just because it like captured a certain thing. Um, and I think one important point that I've like tried to like just like apply in music is like you don't have to follow rules with anything. It's like if something feels right, then like yeah, you can just like roll with it. You don't have to do it a certain way. Like you don't like yeah, like in terms of vocals, I'd be like even if I recorded it on like not my normal vocal mic that I use, if it sounds good, man, like why not? Like you don't it doesn't have to fit in and like into all of these boxes. Like there's like
Yep.
people a lot of the time will resonate with authenticity, and there's not like within that perfection doesn't have to be like a non-negotiable. Like it can just have like a certain quality that you can't really explain. And yeah, like a lot of the time I try and make decisions with that in mind. Which can be tricky sometimes, but do what we can.
Speaking of feel good music, James, what kind of music do you listen to? I guess over your life or just new music you found recently?
Mm. So I have a like the last like few years I've had like a pretty like off and on relationship when it comes to listening to music. I think that it's something that um like yeah, professional musicians, artists, etc. I think it's something that like a lot of people do have a weird relationship with because it's like I'm doing music all day. A lot of my life revolves around creating and listening to music that I'm currently kind of like making. So sometimes outside of that, I just like don't have the headspace to listen to it. But it kind of comes in waves for me. It's like interesting. yeah, like the other day, I like put on a playlist that I hadn't listened to in like 4 years, and I was like, oh man, like I need to listen to this stuff again. Like it was really kind of taking me back, and it was like reminding me why I like love music, because it's like it does feel weird when I'm like making it all the time and then not like actively listening to it as a consumer outside of that. But it's
Mhm.
I think it's there's this jazz musician called Kenny Werner who teaches at Berkeley sometimes, and he talks about it in a really interesting way. He's saying, and I think this is exactly the reason, or one of the reasons why I've like had a weird relationship with listening to music. He talks about um basically like you're hearing the music, but you're not actually listening to it. You're basically you're hearing it, and then you're just comparing yourself to the music that's being played, and you're viewing it through the eyes of like somebody that doesn't feel like they're as good as the people that like made the music that they're listening to. And so
Mhm.
listening to music starts making you feel bad about yourself, because you're just like, it's just a mirror reminding you that like you're not where you want to be. And his advice is to just like you don't have to focus on the music when you put it on. You're gonna hear it regardless, but you can just like he just recommends like focusing on your breathing, and just not allowing yourself to kind of like be taken down as kind of like ego centric kind of like journey of self-deprecation. But I'll tell you what I have mainly listened to over the last couple of years. um it's instrumental. I mainly listen to instrumental music,
Okay.
just because it doesn't encroach as much onto my I don't know. Yeah, like the main thing that I've been listening to the last couple of years is video game music, just because I love video games, and there's a certain, I think because it feels like a different world. It feels like I can listen to it, and it doesn't it can't make me feel bad about myself, because it's like this other space. Like I was saying earlier about like not posting on social media for a year. I had this like a really like weird relationship with music over that year, and then I found that video game music was like made me like feel very like comforted and safe. And it's kind
Okay.
of like carried on a bit from that point. um I think, yeah, I'm definitely listening to more music these days, because I'm in a much more like positive place when it comes to like the way that I view myself and my music and my place in like the world of music. Um, but yeah, I love there's this guy called Disaster Piece, who the soundtrack, the game soundtrack that he's done that I love is this game called Hyper Light Drifter. But then he also did the music to, there's a horror film a few years ago called It Follows.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
sounds,
yeah.
bro, that is so it kind of sounds very Stranger Things esque. But I'm like, yeah, I'm proper into that guy. He's amazing. I remember when I first listened to it, I was like, oh man, I wonder what like he must have like so many amazing like analog synths. And I found this video on YouTube, and he just uses like this one VST called Massive, and it's like he just does everything in this one VST. He hasn't got any analog synths at all, which kind of made me like rethink a bunch of stuff. So I think I have too many keyboards, man.
James,
um,
yeah, you might have to get a call back to Final Stallions, because this is an episode that I want to dive in, is music in games. Like, it's crazy when you have an open world game and you just enter a different city and the music starts changing, or like when you're getting attacked,
Hmm.
everything's ramping up
yeah,
real quick. Like, it's so unique and so just in the back of your mind when you're playing it that you don't even freaking realize it's happening, but it is genuinely changing your emotions, how you're reacting. Like, it's such a, yeah, it's such a huge thing. Like, and there's a whole market for it out there. Like the fact that you're
bro.
naming specific artists for, like, I gotta dive into that.
Yeah. That you put that really, really well. Like that's exactly it. It has to. It fulfills a really specific job where it's vital that it kind of carries and helps guides your emotion while you're playing the game, but it can't take too much of the focus away, because you don't want to be distracted by it. And it's like a real, like, fine medium between those two. One thing that I really love about it, there's this other game called Hollow Knight that I'm like this guy Christopher Larkin, and I'm like obsessed with that soundtrack as well. And I watched this video, this guy on YouTube called 8-Bit Music Theory. He did a series of videos on the music in Hollow Knight, and there was this. He was talking about the light motifs within Hollow Knight, which is basically just like repeating motifs over like the whole game, but there's like specific undertones of the storyline which are really nuanced, and it's the sort of thing that you'd never realize while you're playing it, but maybe subconsciously it kind of like draws you in, where there'll be like a certain movement in like one part of the game, and then you get into this other section and it's there, but it's kind of like it's in like the bass, and it's kind of like maybe a couple notes are changed, and it's just really subtly drawing you into this like sub story within the main story of just like these different musical ideas. And then you'll get like a boss and it'll be the same thing, but it'll be like a bit more minor, or kind of like it's just flipping around with different instruments, and it's like like it just made me really want to be able to like write music for a game, which is something that I'm like I've got on the back burner. Like I was saying, I don't want to spread myself too thin, but it's like
side quest
I want to do. Yeah, exactly, man. But the thing that just feels so exciting about that is you like writing music to game is like so different to just like writing music, because there's this whole other thing that is part of it, and you get to write something that is interactive with somebody playing a game, and that's a unique thing that only video games have. Like films don't even have that. It's like, even though it's going alongside it, it's not interactive in the same way, and I think that's why like video game music feels really special to me, because it's very unique in that sense. And it's something that I very much hope that I get to embark upon like at some point.
This is a little bit different, but Mario Kart 8 opening theme song, like some of the best guitar and horns I've heard like on any track ever. Like dive into that if you haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, man. Like I'm not actually sure who did the Mario Kart 8 music, but Koji Kondo is the guy who kind of did like all of the old Nintendo stuff. And like all the Zelda stuff, all the old Mario stuff, like he kind of did like the initial Mario theme, and like it's wild to me, man, that like he's Japanese as well, which is like the video game thing ties in so much with the Japanese music influence. It's like I like to think of like my trifecta of influences is like 80s sci-fi films, video game music, and anime. That's like my trifecta.
Okay.
But yeah, I love how when all of those like themes were being written, it was like I really don't think that they knew how impactful they were going to be and how memorable they were going to be. Like everybody knows those themes, and it was just like made as like a little side bit of a game. It's not like the main thing. Like everybody knows those themes. They've been written so well, and they were also written on like these weird little, like the way that music was written in the 90s was like so convoluted, because like it had to be written like on the console, and they had like a few, like the most minimal number of sounds. They just had like a saw wave like noise, and they just had to like work with it and try and like make something sound cool out of like the most limited things. And I think it's like the whole thing of like limitations create what's the phrase? I like limitate, like having a tight framework of limitations forces you to be super creative in like a much smaller space, and I think that can be really beneficial. And yeah, like looking at like a lot of those old video game themes, that's a really really great example of that.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that. That's a very unique thing that we've not had many guests talk about, and I'm glad you opened that can of worms, because like I said, you're getting that invite back, and I definitely want to dive into this at one point, because there's a whole lot more that we can talk about.
100%, man.
Mr. Klepp, do you have anything before we toss James into the famous Vinyl Stallions encore?
No, I think we've hit on quite a bit.
Yeah, James. No, we appreciate you again, willing to come chat with us. This has been an incredible. Yeah, it was like already over an hour. It feels like it's been 10 minutes. So I
Real man.
appreciate you just diving into your whole life, what's going on. Again, everyone, check out James Berkeley, and yeah, it's an incredible. Just to simply follow you on Instagram. I love you. Just did a Mac Miller cover, man, and like I love Mac. And again, the videos, raw videos, seeing people just do it and putting it out there is what inspires me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the 1 minute beat videos are pretty crazy too.
Oh, thank you, man. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, those are a bit stressful doing those ones. Yeah, I need to see some more of those actually.
yeah. So keep posting on social media because you're
Thank you,
inspiring
man.
other people out there. So, but yes, as I said, we always do an encore here on Vinyl Stallions, where we ask our guests a simple question. It is, what is your most memorable concert experience or experiences? And you could think of it as a holy cow moment. This is incredible. Or what the fuck did I just witness? It could be some you on stage or you attending. But yeah, feel free to rattle off a couple that come to your head.
I would say seeing D'Angelo in London in oh man, it must have been like 2015, I think. That was definitely one of the most incredible shows that I've been to, but it was mainly that it just happened at this at like the perfect time where I was like I'd been getting into that music. It was during this period of time where I was saying I was obsessed with D'Angelo, and it was just when like I felt like my understanding of music and my ability had all kind of like come to a head, and this gig came at the perfect time. It was like I got into D'Angelo, and then like really soon after that, he announced Black Messiah, which was like such crazy timing after like because he hadn't released an album in like 14 years, and then like
Yeah.
literally just as I got into it, he released a new album and then went on the tour, and it was like so wild. Um, and yeah, it was one of those shows. Like I've definitely found, I don't know if you guys find this ever, like I've definitely found over the years there's some shows where I go to where like I'm kind of ready. I'm ready for it to finish by the end. I enjoyed it, but I'm ready for it to finish by the end. And maybe like I haven't been super present the whole time. But this D'Angelo gig, I was just like, it could have just gone on for so much longer. I was like so there. I was like, there was one point in the set where I can't think of what song it was, man. They played a song. I got so excited that I just forgot like all the words instantly, even though I knew it like really well. Um, yeah, it was that was like a really like important show for me, and I think it like I've found over the years there's been a few shows where like it just like inspires me and carries me to us like from that point to like forwards to another point. Trying to think of like some more recent ones. You know what? Actually, we were at Glastonbury last year, and Kendrick Lamar Glastonbury last year. That was one of the most incredible shows I've ever been to. That was just I I mean, firstly, like being on the main stage of a festival and actually having like an open air festival and having good sound always kind of blows my mind, because there's so much of the time where you see a band at main stage festival and you're like, sound is really bad though. Like this does not sound good. Like it's just it's just a hard space to work with him. But it's like the most incredible sound, and just like he's just like such an incredible performer. And it was just like there was just a bit where he just like stood totally still for like a minute or two, and it just like it just had such a presence. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. And it was like the Sunday night as well. We were like we like left like straight after it because we'd like played a show on like the Friday and then the Sunday. So we were like super like we were like at the most tired point, but like absolutely kind of kept us going. Yeah, that was an amazing one. Trying to think. Oh man, it's hard just like remembering the shows that you've been to. They all kind of just like blow into one. Um, there was a Kiefer show. Do you guys know Kiefer?
I do not.
He's a
Yeah.
LA like producer, piano player. Like, yeah, he's incredible. He played in Brighton a few of like, was it this year or last year? It was kind of in the last year. And that case, I feel like sometimes shows come like a really important time for me. Like I'll go and I'll just realize as it's happening, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to be here right now. That like this is where I'm meant to be. Just like
Right on.
kind of fuels me, just like the energy of the performance and just like how incredible he is. It was just like occasionally I just need that. Just I think like it's again going back to what I was saying about like consuming music just as a musician. I feel like it's slightly different. So like a lot of the time with shows, I'm trying to get something, like not just, it's not like going to the cinema and just like I'm not just trying to enjoy it. I'm trying to like there's some fuel that I'm trying to get from it, which I'm not even saying that's necessarily a good thing. Like I would probably like to be able to go and have no ulterior motive, but here we are. So yeah, that show definitely like it's very inspiring, just seeing somebody who you really like just have an amazing energy on stage and just like play just like incredibly and just be like, I don't know, just for like an aspirational thing, for an inspiration, for just like for a motivational thing. Like, yeah, that he's a really big inspo for me for sure. Like he's got a like a part of his online presence, which is a lot about kind of just like helping other musicians and stuff, which that's definitely been influential to me.
I'm gonna have to dive in then.
Yeah, man. Yeah, please do.
I love it, man. No, hey, I appreciate you diving into all those. I've seen Kendrick live as well, and there's truly nothing like that performance. And and I'm glad you had the energy to make it to that Sunday show.
Yeah, made it through just about.
Love it, man. Well, hey, Klopp and I cannot thank you enough for willing to come on, chat with us again. It's a great experience on my end. I learned so friggin' much. And again, just being able to connect with someone like yourself who's just so deeply into music is very rewarding and a breath of fresh air.
Thank you, man. Yeah, like thank you so much for having me on the show, guys. Like very, very good to chat about this stuff. I enjoy talking about it. So no, thank you for giving me the platform and the time.
Right on. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
100%, man.
Love it, everybody. Yeah, again, James Berkeley Music. Yako, like everyone go check them out, man. Like incredible music and only going up from here, James.
Yeah, no doubt.
Love it. Well, besides that, my name is Bruce.
I'm Clap.
And this has been another episode of Vinyl Stallion.